What is the most important element of spirits production?
The most important thing is the whole thing. As a blender, I would say that because I have to understand everything right from the barley in the field to distillation to the casks.
I'm going to say 3 elements, and I'm going to put this out in front of you here. This is Dr. Don's flavor wheel. For me, the most elements really starts at the center of this wheel. There's only 3 places where flavor can come from. It can come from the grain, the yeast, or the cask.
I think probably the most important element of spirit production is to get the right quality raw materials to start off with.
If you think about the way that winemakers think about grapes, or brewers think about malt, or chefs think about the ingredients that go into their food, all of that is centered around raw ingredients.
You know, the right quality of malted barley, of water, of yeast in terms of whiskey production.
We're making something that is from grain. Why should we not focus on the flavor of those raw ingredients on that malted barley specifically?
And because if you don't have the right raw materials, then you can forget it, you can't make anything.
The design of a spirit, the taste profile of a spirit, the very soul of a spirit, the DNA comes from the substrate, the material the spirit is distilled from, and fermentation.
We can change the grains from corn, wheat, rye, barley, or we can ferment under different parameters. Yeast will make that green grass, fruity, floral, soapy note in your whiskeys.
Distillation is a way to select within what you've created with the raw material you're fermenting and the way you ferment it. People don't understand sometimes how important yeast fermentation is and length of fermentation. There's so much magic happening there.
The most important element of spirits production, specifically rum production, would be distillation.
And again, distillation will be your way to picking and choosing some of these elements. Sure, they're creations of elements, but really your DNA has been established with that first step.
It's important to have those very specific marks, understand what your cuts are and what the organoleptic components of your cuts are, so that makes the best precursor before you get to aging your liquid.
Aging is and should be, I feel, what we call in French élevage. Elevate, you polish, you fine-tune, you bring forward.
And the barrel, we can burn a certain way, or we can finish it to get different flavors in the whiskey, or we can age. Aging does give a flavor.
Sure, some elements of taste, again, some molecules and chains are done during the aging, but really most importantly what you're doing is you're pushing forward what you've designed with the material you chose and the way you fermented it.
And as a blender, that's your thought. You have to think about the 3 places where you can pull flavors in, and then how can you manipulate those things.
I think that having strong quality control parameters is really your bread and butter to making sure that you're producing a spirit that is going to have repeatability and have a standard of flavor. You have to make sure you have good quality measures, from grain to your yeasting practices, hygiene at your distillery.
As long as you've got quality ingredients, a great source of quality oak to mature in, and a beautiful distillery that is looked after.
If I'm going to be out talking about this product, this brand, I want to make sure that it tastes the way it should.
Of course, being a master blender, I'm going to say the human element, the sensory experience.
So I'm biased here and say that blending naturally is the most important part of the process. From a blending point of view, you're taking different spirit types and barrel types that are made every day. But as a blender, you're mixing and marrying them in certain ways to create a signature style of taste for a certain brand.
It's like getting to know a friend really, really intimately. You have to understand the process and how that process influences flavour.
And you have to manage your stock to make sure you can create that constantly from batch to batch. And you need to source world-class barrels as well to have the spirit to go into. So without those 2 elements, you can't really do a good blending job.
So it's understanding the quality, the character, the flavour of the spirit, of the still, understanding the different influences of maturation as well, so that you can kind of mold and nurture the spirit.
I think all aspects of spirit production are important, and it's important to look at it that way.
Using your senses, the knowledge, the understanding, to be able to create flavour.
I think that every decision you make regarding your product has an influence, and I think that they're all important.